First contact and hidden strength. The observation deck of the UES Defiance offered an unparalleled view of Jupiter's swirling storm clouds. Captain Alina Reyes stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her sharp gaze fixed on the gas giant's mesmerizing patterns. At 45, she had spent half her life in space, but the sight of Jupiter's great red spot still filled her with wonder. "Beautiful, isn't it?" remarked Commander Jackson Chen as he approached, his footsteps barely audible on the polished floor. "Hard to believe what's hidden on the other side." Elena nodded, her expression solemn. 27 years of preparation, all for this moment. Behind Jupiter, concealed from Earth and any watching eyes, floated humanity's greatest secret, the Seventh Fleet, 50 warships of various classes, from nimble corvettes to the imposing dreadnoughts, all constructed in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. The Defiance was Elena's ship, a stealth cruiser designed for reconnaissance and first strike capabilities. "Status report," Elena said, turning away from the viewport. "All systems nominal, Captain. The fleet remains undetected. Admiral Kekri has authorized yellow alert status across all vessels. And our visitors, still on their projected course. 3 vessels, approximately half the size of the Defiance. Their energy signatures match the profiles from our long-range scans. They're definitely Saraxian." The Saraxian Empire. For decades, only a handful of people on Earth knew that name. It had begun in 2037, when the Deep Space Listening Post on the far side of the Moon had detected the first transmissions. Alien communications, encrypted and indecipherable at first, but unmistakably artificial. Instead of announcing this discovery to the world, triggering what would undoubtedly be global panic, a small council of scientists, military leaders, and government officials had made a fateful decision. They would listen, they would learn, and they would prepare. "It's time," Elena said. She tapped her neural interface, activating the ship's internal communication system. "All hands to battle stations, stealth systems at maximum capacity, weapons on standby." First contact protocol initiated. Throughout the Defiance, crew members moved with practiced efficiency to their positions. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. Unlike the crews of science fiction stories, these men and women had trained for this day their entire careers. The existence of alien life wasn't a shock. It was an anticipated certainty. In the command center, Elena took her place in the captain's chair. The holographic displays around her showed the Defiance's systems, the positions of the rest of the Seventh Fleet, and the approaching Saraxian vessels. "They've altered course, Captain," announced Lieutenant Sofia Rodriguez from the tactical station. "They're heading toward the Jovian moon mining colony. Europa Outpost reports all civilian personnel have evacuated to the emergency shelters," added Communications Officer Prisha Patil. "Defense grid is online." Elena's jaw tightened. The mining operation on Europa was ostensibly a commercial venture, extracting valuable minerals from the icy moon. In reality, it served as the forward outpost for humanity's defense network, monitoring the outer solar system for any approach. "Admiral Kekri is on Secure Channel 1, Prisha reported. The stern face of Admiral Vikram Kekri appeared on the main view screen. His salt and pepper hair was cut military short, and the scar running from his left temple to his jaw gave him a perpetually fierce expression. "Captain Rice, our long-range sensors confirm these are scout vessels. Their energy signatures indicate they're armed, but not heavily. This appears to be a reconnaissance mission. Recommendations, Admiral. The Council has deliberated. We have 2 options: maintain our stealth and observe, potentially allowing them to discover Europa Outpost, or reveal ourselves and make a show of force." Elena considered the implications. For years, humanity had debated this very scenario. Would it be better to appear weak and gain intelligence, or demonstrate strength immediately? "The Saraxian Empire has conquered 12 systems in the last century," Admiral Kekri continued. "Their pattern is consistent. They probe, they assess resistance capabilities, And if they deem a civilization vulnerable, they strike with overwhelming force. And if they encounter significant resistance, according to the transmissions we intercepted, they establish diplomatic relations and seek more subtle means of domination, trade agreements that favor them, technological assistance that creates dependency. Elena nodded. Then we show them our teeth. Precisely, Captain. You have authorization to engage the scout vessels with non-lethal force. Demonstrate our technological capabilities, but capture rather than destroy if possible. We need prisoners for interrogat. Understood, Admiral. Defiance out. The view screen returned to the tactical display. Elena turned to her executive officer. Commander Chen, prepare intercept course. Lieutenant Rodriguez, power up the electromagnetic pulse cannons. We'll disable their propulsion and communication systems first. Aye, Captain. Both officers responded in unison. The Defiance's engines hummed to life, powerful yet remarkably quiet. The stealth cruiser detached from its docking position and moved out from behind Jupiter's shadow, accelerating toward the approaching alien vessels. ETA to intercept, Elena asked. 7 minutes, Captain, replied the navigation officer. Lieutenant Omar Al-Fahim, open a channel to the fleet. I want to address the crew. Prisha nodded, her fingers dancing across her console. Channel open, Captain. Elena straightened in her chair. Attention all hands. This is Captain Reyes. In a few minutes, we will engage in humanity's first official contact with an extraterrestrial species. For nearly 3 decades, we have prepared for this moment. The Galactic Empire believes they are encountering an unsuspecting, primitive civilization. They are about to discover their mistake. She paused, looking around at her bridge crew, seeing determination in their eyes. Each of you was chosen for this mission because you represent the best humanity has to offer. Your training, your dedication, your courage. These qualities will serve us well today. Remember that behind us stands not just the 7th Fleet, but all of Earth. We are the shield that protects our home. We will not fail. Throughout the ship, crew members listened in silence, the weight of responsibility heavy on their shoulders. Stand ready. Rise out. On the tactical display, the 3 Saraxian vessels appeared as red triangles against the black backdrop of space. They were approaching Europa at a steady pace, seemingly unaware of the human warship closing in on them. 5 minutes to intercept, Omar announced. Thermal signatures indicate they're scanning Europa outpost, Sofia reported. They've detected our mining operation. Let's introduce ourselves before they get too curious, Elena said. Disengage stealth systems. The Defiance shimmered into visibility, its sleek, angular hull designed to minimize detection now fully revealed. Its dark, carbon composite exterior absorbed rather than reflected light, making it appear like a ship-shaped void against the stars. Saraxian vessels are altering course, Sofia announced, a hint of triumph in her voice. They've detected us. They're moving to defensive positions. The largest vessel is powering up weapons systems, Commander Chen added, his eyes on the tactical display. Open a channel. All frequencies. Universal translator activated, Elena ordered. Channel open, Prisha confirmed. Elena stood, facing the view screen where the Saraxian vessels were now clearly visible. Their design was unlike anything humans had imagined, organic rather than geometric, with curved, overlapping sections that resembled the carapace of some enormous insect. Attention Saraxian vessels. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Ship Defiance. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions, or you will be fired upon. There was a moment of silence, then a response came through. The translation system processed the alien language, converting it to a slightly mechanical-sounding voice. Unidentified vessel. This is Scout Commander Drazik of the Imperial Saraxian Advance Force. Your system is unclaimed. Lower your weapons and prepare to be boarded for standard evaluation procedures. Elena's eyebrows rose. Standard evaluation procedures. Commander Drazek, perhaps I was unclear. This system is claimed. It belongs to humanity, and you are trespassing. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted out of our territory. A different voice came through the channel now, deeper and more authoritative. Captain of the primitive vessel, this is Supreme Commander Krell. Your insolence is noted. The Syraxian Empire claims this system by right of discovery. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. You have 1 minute to comply. Elena glanced at Commander Chen, who nodded grimly. This matched the psychological profile they had developed of the Syraxian command structure: arrogant, dismissive of species they deemed inferior, and quick to threaten. Supreme Commander Krell, Elena replied calmly, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This isn't a primitive vessel, and we are not a primitive species. Allow me to demonstrate. She made a cutting motion across her throat, and Prisha closed the channel. Target the lead vessel's propulsion systems. Low-yield electromagnetic pulse. Focused beam. Targeting, Captain, Sophia confirmed. Ready to fire. Fire. The Defiance's main weapon, the quantum cascade cannon, powered up, drawing energy from the ship's fusion reactor. Unlike conventional weapons, it didn't fire a projectile or an energy beam visible to the naked eye. Instead, it emitted a precisely calibrated pulse of quantum particles designed to temporarily disrupt electronic systems without causing permanent damage. The effect on the Syraxian vessel was immediate. Its lights flickered, then went dark. It began to drift, its orientation thrusters firing randomly as its control systems malfunctioned. Direct hit, Captain, Sophia reported. Their primary systems are offline. Minimal structural damage detected. The other vessels are powering up weapons, Commander Chen warned. Target the second vessel. Same protocol. Elena ordered. Defensive shields at maximum. Before the Defiance could fire again, the 2 remaining Syraxian ships launched their attack. Energy beams of an incandescent purple hue lanced out, striking the human vessel's shields. Shields holding at 92%, Commander Chen reported. Their weapons technology is impressive, but less advanced than our model suggested. Elena smiled grimly. Fire at will, Lieutenant Rodriguez. The quantum cascade cannon fired twice more in rapid succession. The second Syraxian vessel suffered the same fate as the first, its systems disrupted, left drifting helplessly in space. The third and smallest vessel attempted to retreat, accelerating away from the engagement. They're trying to escape, Captain, Omar reported, likely to report back to their fleet. Can't allow that, Elena said. Target their communication array first, then propulsion. Targeting. Firing. The quantum cascade cannon fired a third time, the beam narrower and more precisely focused. The Syraxian vessel's communication array, a spire-like structure on its dorsal section, crumpled as if struck by an invisible hammer. Communications disabled, Sophia confirmed. Targeting propulsion systems. A fourth pulse struck the fleeing vessel's engines, causing them to flare briefly before shutting down. The ship continued forward on its momentum, but was no longer accelerating. All 3 vessels disabled, Captain, Commander Chen reported. Minimal casualties detected on their life support readings. Elena nodded with satisfaction. Open a channel to the third vessel. Channel open, Prisha confirmed. Supreme Commander Krell, this is Captain Reyes again. As you can see, our primitive vessel has disabled your entire scout force without significant effort. You are now at our mercy. There was a long pause before Krell's voice came through again, noticeably less arrogant. What do you want, Earth vessel? I want you to understand something. Supreme Commander, humanity has been aware of the Syraxian Empire for decades. We've listened to your communications, studied your technology, and prepared accordingly. The vessel you're facing is merely one of many. As if on cue, 5 more human warships decloaked around the disabled Syraxian vessels. 2 destroyer-class ships, larger than the Defiance, and 3 corvettes, smaller but bristling with weapons. This is but a fraction of our fleet, Supreme Commander. Your standard evaluation procedures will not be necessary. Instead, I offer you this choice. You and your crews will be taken into temporary custody, treated according to our laws governing prisoners of war, and eventually returned to your empire with a message. Or you can continue to resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate more permanent aspects of our defensive capabilities. Another long pause. Elena could almost feel the Supreme Commander's rage and disbelief through the communication channel. We accept your terms, Captain Reyes. Krell finally responded, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. A wise decision, Supreme Commander. Prepare to be boarded. Elena ended the transmission and turned to her command crew. Their faces showed a mixture of relief and pride. Well done, everyone, she said, but this is only the beginning. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. The rest of the fleet is moving into position, Captain, Commander Chen reported. Admiral Katri has ordered full combat readiness throughout the system. Elena nodded, her gaze returning to the viewport where the disabled Seraxian vessels drifted against the backdrop of Jupiter's massive form. So it begins, she said quietly. Humanity's first interstellar war. Little did the Seraxian Empire know that this small encounter was just the opening move in a conflict that would reshape the galaxy, and that the primitive species they had so casually dismissed would be the architect of their downfall. Battle for the solar system. Supreme Commander Krell's containment cell aboard the UES Indomitable was comfortable by human standards, but it did nothing to soothe his wounded pride. The tall, chitinous alien paced restlessly, his 4 eyes constantly scanning for weaknesses in his prison. You should sit down, suggested Dr. Amara Okafor, the xenobiologist assigned to study their Seraxian prisoners. Your metabolic readings suggest you're approaching exhaustion. Krell's upper lip curled back, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. I do not take advice from lesser species. Amara smiled patiently. At 38, she'd spent the last 15 years studying the biological data gleaned from crashed Seraxian scout ships and intercepted medical transmissions. She knew more about Seraxian physiology than perhaps any human alive. Lesser, that's an interesting assumption, given your current circumstances. Temporary setback, Krell growled. The Empire spans 300 star systems. Your primitive fleet disabled 3 scout vessels. When our main battle group arrives, your species will understand true power. And when might we expect this battle group? Krell's secondary eyes narrowed, a sign of suspicion, according to Amara's research. You cannot possibly hope to. He was interrupted by the cell door sliding open. Admiral Vikram Katri entered, flanked by 2 security officers. The Admiral's imposing presence seemed to fill the room. Supreme Commander Krell, Chatri said, his voice level. I trust your accommodations are satisfactory. They are an insult, Krell snarled. I demand to be returned to my vessel immediately. In due time, Chatri replied. First, we need to establish certain realities. My name is Admiral Vikram Katri, Supreme Commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces. Your vessels entered our sovereign territory without permission. Under normal circumstances, this would be considered an act of war. Krell's large primary eyes blinked in what Amara recognized as the Seraxian equivalent of a dismissive snort. War? You speak as if you're our equals. We've conquered species far more advanced than yours. Chatri remained unmoved. Perhaps. But you've never encountered humans before. He tapped a small device on his wrist. A holographic display appeared in the center of the cell, showing the Sol system. Dozens of blue dots illuminated throughout the projection, orbital defense platforms, hidden bases, and warships of various classes. This is our current defensive posture, Chatri explained. 173 warships, 300 orbital defense platforms, and military bases on most major celestial bodies in our system. We've been preparing for this encounter for 27 years. Krell's mandibles clicked, a sign of agitation. Impossible. Our long-range scans detected nothing. Yes, stealth technology is one of our specialties, as is quantum communication, advanced shield harmonics, and several other technologies your empire might find. Surprising. The Admiral's calm confidence clearly unsettled the Siraxian commander. Krell's exoskeleton shifted color slightly, darkening around the edges. Another stress response, Amara noted. "What do you want?" Krell finally asked. "A simple exchange," Chatri replied. "Information for your freedom. Tell us about the incoming Siraxian fleet, size, composition, ETA. And once we've verified your information, you and your crew will be released at the edge of our system with sufficient supplies to reach your nearest outpost. And if I refuse, then you'll remain our guests until the conflict is resolved, one way or another." Krell's upper body stiffened, pride warring with pragmatism. The battle group includes 57 capital ships and over 200 support vessels. They will arrive in approximately 7 of your Earth days. They are commanded by Grand Marshal Xerix, the Emperor's own bloodkin. Catri's expression revealed nothing, but Amara caught the slight tensing of his jaw. "Thank you for your cooperation, Supreme Commander. We'll begin arrangements for your release." As they exited the cell, Amara caught up with the Admiral in the corridor. "Sir, his physiological markers didn't indicate deception, but the fleet numbers seem low compared to our intelligence estimates." "Agreed," Chatri replied grimly. "Either their fleet is smaller than we anticipated, or he's only telling us about the first wave." "The first wave should be our immediate concern," came a voice from behind them. Dr. Wei Chen, Earth's foremost expert on propulsion systems and quantum physics, approached with a tablet in hand. The diminutive scientist moved with an energy that belied his 60 years. "Dr. Chen," Chatri acknowledged, "I assume you've completed your analysis of the Siraxian vessels." "Indeed, and they're fascinating," Chen replied, his eyes bright with scientific curiosity. "Their quantum fold drive is remarkably efficient, but it operates on principles we abandoned a decade ago as too limited. Their weapon systems utilize a form of plasma containment we considered but found too unstable." "Get to the point, Doctor," Chatri said, though not unkindly. "The point, Admiral, is that they're vulnerable. Their shield harmonics operate within a narrow frequency band, one our quantum cascade cannons can exploit, and their targeting systems rely on predictive algorithms that won't anticipate our nonlinear combat maneuvers." Chatri nodded thoughtfully. "Send your full report to the Strategic Command. We'll need to update our defense plans immediately." As Chen hurried away, Chatri turned to Amara. "Doctor, continue your analysis of the Siraxian prisoners. Any biological weakness could be crucial in the coming conflict." "Yes, Admiral," Amara replied, already mentally cataloging the physiological responses she'd observed in Krell. Catri's neural interface pinged, and he tapped his temple to accept the incoming communication. "Catri here." "Admiral," came Captain Rice's voice. "Long-range sensors have detected a quantum distortion at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. It matches the signature of the Siraxian scout vessels, but significantly larger." Catri's expression darkened. "Understood, Captain. It seems our guest underestimated the Empire's response time. Battle stations, all vessels, initiate Defense Protocol Omega." Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden forces sprang into action. On Mars, massive hangar doors disguised as natural formations slid open, revealing squadrons of fighter craft. In the asteroid belt, mining operations transformed into military installations, their surfaces bristling with weapon emplacements. Around Earth itself, orbital platforms that had masqueraded as communication satellites and research stations powered up their defense systems. Within hours, the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from all nations gathered in the underground chamber beneath Geneva, an installation designed to survive even the most devastating attacks. President Sofia Alvarez, a former astronaut who had transitioned to politics after a distinguished career in space, addressed the assembly. At 62, her face showed the lines of responsibility, but her voice remained as strong as ever. Members of the Council, the moment we have prepared for has arrived. The Syraxian Empire has dispatched a battle fleet to our system, intent on conquest. For nearly 3 decades, we have worked in secret, setting aside ancient rivalries and uniting humanity under a common purpose: survival. Holographic displays showed the approaching Syraxian fleet, their organic-looking vessels clustered in attack formation. Some of you questioned the resources dedicated to our space defense program. Alvarez continued. Some argued that the alien transmissions we detected could have been peaceful in nature. Today, those questions are answered. The Syraxian Empire does not seek cultural exchange or diplomatic relations. They seek to subjugate, as they have done to countless civilizations before us. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. But humanity will not be conquered. We will not submit. We have prepared. We have planned. And now we will fight. The knowledge of our defense capabilities has been compartmentalized until now, but the time for secrecy has passed. With a gesture, President Alvarez expanded the holographic display, revealing the full extent of Earth's military assets throughout the solar system. This is our strength. This is our shield. Every nation on Earth has contributed to this force, whether they knew it or not. The advancements in quantum physics, material science, artificial intelligence, all guided toward creating a defense capable of repelling an interstellar threat. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as representatives saw for the first time the true scale of humanity's preparations. I now call for a formal declaration of war against the Syraxian Empire, not a war of conquest or expansion, but a war of survival. A war to protect our home, our people, our very existence as a free species. The vote was unanimous. Across Earth, public broadcasts interrupted regular programming. President Alvarez addressed humanity directly, revealing the truth that had been hidden for so long. Initial panic gave way to resolve as images of Earth's defense fleet and installation were shown, tangible proof that humanity was not helpless against the alien threat. In orbit around Jupiter, the UES Defiance maintained its position at the forefront of the human battle line. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display where the approaching Syraxian fleet appeared as a threatening cloud of red markers. Fleet-wide transmission from Admiral Khatri, Captain, announced Communications Officer Prisha Patel. Put it through, Alina ordered. Admiral Khatri's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave but determined. Attention all vessels and installations. The Syraxian battle group will enter engagement range in approximately 12 hours. Based on analysis of their formation and approach vector, they intend to bypass our outer defenses and strike directly at Earth. We will not allow this. The tactical display shifted, showing the positioning of human forces throughout the system. Battle Group Alpha will engage the enemy at the orbit of Saturn, forcing them to commit their forces before they reach the inner system. Battle Group Beta will remain in reserve near Jupiter, ready to reinforce or counterattack as needed. The Mars defense perimeter and Earth orbital grid will prepare for potential breakthroughs. Khatri's gaze seemed to meet each commander individually through the screen. The Syraxian Empire believes they are facing a primitive species ripe for conquest. They expect an easy victory, followed by the subjugation of yet another world. Instead, they will encounter the full fury of a species that has spent nearly 3 decades preparing for this precise moment. Throughout the fleet, crews checked and rechecked their systems, ran final drills, and prepared mentally for the coming battle. Some of you may not return from this engagement, Khatri continued, his voice solemn. But know that your sacrifice protects not just your family, not just your nation, but all of humanity. Today, we stand united as never before in our history. Today, we fight not as Americans or Russians or Chinese or Nigerians, but as humans defending our shared home. The transmission ended, leaving a moment of silence on the Defiance's bridge. Quite the speech, remarked Commander Chen. Think we're ready for this, Captain. Elena studied the tactical display, calculating odds and scenarios in her mind. "We'd better be, Commander. We've trained for this our entire careers. Now it's time to put that training to the test." "Incoming transmission from the Indomitable," announced Prisha. "Dr. Chen wishes to speak with you, Captain." "Put him through," Alina replied, curious about what the scientist had discovered. Dr. Y. Chen's excited face appeared on the screen. "Captain Rice, my analysis of the Seraxian vessels has yielded a critical discovery. Their shield systems are particularly vulnerable to a specific electromagnetic frequency, one we can generate with a modified version of our quantum cascade cannons." Elena leaned forward, suddenly alert. "How significant is this vulnerability, Doctor?" "Under laboratory conditions, we achieved a 78% reduction in shield effectiveness with a calibrated pulse. In combat conditions, I estimate we could reduce their shields by 40 to 50% with a single hit. That could be decisive," Elena said, her mind already considering tactical applications. "How quickly can these modifications be implemented?" "The adjustments are relatively minor, primarily software-based rather than hardware changes. I've already transmitted the specifications to your chief engineer. They should be completed within 3 hours." "Excellent work, Doctor. Anything else?" Chen's expression turned serious. "One more thing, Captain. Analysis of their communication protocols suggests they utilize a form of quantum entanglement similar to our own, but with a critical difference. Their system is centralized. All battlefield communications route through their command vessels." Elena immediately grasped the implications. "If we can disrupt or destroy their command ship." "Precisely. Their battlefield coordination would collapse. Individual ship commanders would be forced to rely on prearranged protocols rather than adapting to changing circumstances." "Thank you, Doctor. This could change everything." "Rise out." As Chen's face disappeared from the screen, Elena turned to her XO. "Commander, coordinate with Tactical. I want a targeting priority list that puts their command vessels at the top. And get me a direct line to Admiral Katri. He needs to know about this immediately." Throughout the solar system, humanity's forces made final preparations. In Earth orbit, civilian ships were evacuated to hardened shelters beneath the lunar surface. On Mars, defense batteries ran final targeting drills. In the asteroid belt, stealth mines were activated, their sensors searching for Seraxian energy signatures. 10 hours later, the first wave of the Seraxian battle group crossed the orbit of Uranus. True to Admiral Katri's prediction, they bypassed the outer system defenses, making a direct line toward Earth. Their formation was aggressive, a spearhead designed to punch through any resistance and strike at humanity's homeworld. In the command center of the UES Indomitable, Admiral Katri watched the approaching enemy with the calm detachment of a veteran commander. Around him, his staff coordinated the movements of the human fleet, their voices low and professional. "They're not even bothering with reconnaissance," observed his XO, Commander Diana Torres. "They're completely confident in their superior numbers." "Pride before the fall," Chatri replied. "Battle Group Alpha, commence Operation Hammerfall." From their hidden positions around Saturn and its moons, 30 human warships decloaked simultaneously. Their engines flared as they accelerated toward the Seraxian formation, their weapons systems powering up. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Captain Alina Reyes gave the order that would begin humanity's first interstellar battle. "All vessels, this is Captain Reyes. Fire at will. Target enemy command ships with priority." For Earth, the modified quantum cascade cannons fired in a synchronized barrage. Invisible to the naked eye, the quantum pulses streaked across space, each calibrated to the precise frequency Dr. Chen had identified. The effect was immediate and devastating. Where the pulses struck, Seraxian shields flickered and dimmed, losing cohesion. Before they could adapt, conventional weapons followed. Railgun projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, plasma torpedoes that burned with the heat of a small star, and swarms of autonomous combat drones. The Seraxian fleet reeled from the unexpected assault. Several smaller vessels were destroyed outright, their weakened shields unable to repel the human attack. Larger ships suffered significant damage but returned fire, their purple energy beams slicing through space toward the human vessels. Evasive maneuvers, Elena ordered as the enemy fire approached. Pattern Delta 3. The Defiance banked sharply, its inertial dampeners straining to compensate for the sudden change in direction. Most of the enemy fire missed, but one beam caught the edge of the ship's shields, causing them to flare brilliantly. Shields at 87%, reported Tactical Officer Rodriguez. Minimal damage. Enemy targeting algorithms aren't adapting to our movement patterns. Elena nodded grimly. Good. Target their lead vessel. Looks like a command ship based on its communication output. Full barrage, all weapons. The Defiance's weapons fired in sequence. First, the quantum cascade cannon to weaken the enemy shields, then a volley of plasma torpedoes, followed by a swarm of combat drones that targeted specific external systems. Across the battlefield, other human vessels executed similar attack patterns. The Syraxian fleet, expecting to face primitive resistance at best, found themselves in a coordinated battle against a technologically sophisticated opponent. In the UES Indomitable's command center, Admiral Capri studied the tactical display with growing satisfaction. Battle Group Beta, commence flanking maneuver. Execute Plan Cerberus. From the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede, 20 more human warships decloaked and accelerated into the fray. Their approach vector took them around the main engagement, targeting the rear of the Syraxian formation where their support vessels and supply ships were clustered. "Sir," reported his sensor officer, "we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the Syraxian command ship. They appear to be charging some sort of large-scale weapon."